My name is Emily Brooks. I'm 35 years old, a financial analyst in Fairview, Ohio. And on a Tuesday morning in April, my ex-husband's family mailed me a bill for $120,000. Not a request, not a conversation. A bill. It came in a certified envelope with my name typed in stiff black letters across the front. Inside was an official-looking invoice printed on thick cream paper, with the Miller family store's old logo at the top, like that somehow made it legal. Wedding reimbursement, $120,000. At the bottom, written in blue ink, was one sentence from my former mother-in-law, Patricia Miller. Family pays its debts. I stood in my kitchen holding that paper while my coffee went cold beside the sink, and for about 10 seconds, I almost laughed. Because the Millers had always been good at rewriting history. But this time, they had made one mistake. They put the lie in writing. And I had kept the numbers. Welcome back to Raw Drama Stories, where quiet people finally let the truth speak for them. If you've ever been treated like your kindness was a loan someone else could collect on, this story is for you. Drop a comment and tell me what you would have done if your ex's family sent you a $120,000 bill years after the divorce. And don't forget to subscribe, because this one took 7 years, one spreadsheet, and a dead man's warning to finish. Let me take you back to Fairview. Fairview is the kind of town where everyone knows who got married, who got divorced, who bought a new truck, and who left church early before the final hymn. It has one real grocery store, 2 diners, 3 churches, and a main street that still looks like it belongs on a postcard if you squint past the empty windows. I grew up 8 miles outside town in a yellow ranch house with a gravel driveway and a mailbox my father backed into every winter. My parents were school people. My mom taught 4th grade. My dad coached middle school basketball and drove the activity bus on Fridays. We were not poor, but we were careful. New shoes came in August. Vacations meant Lake Erie. Bills were paid on time because my mother treated late fees like moral failure. That is probably where the numbers started for me. By 16, I was balancing my mother's checkbook for fun. By 22, I had a finance degree from Ohio State. By 28, I was working remotely as a financial analyst for a healthcare logistics company in Columbus, living back in Fairview because my father had developed Parkinson's and my mother needed help getting him to appointments. I had a practical life, a neat life, a life with labeled folders, automatic transfers, and a small gray house on Maple Ridge Road that I bought myself. Then I met Ryan Miller. Ryan was 31 when we started dating, broad-shouldered and easy with people in a way I had never been. He could walk into Fairview Diner and somehow know the waitress's nephew's football schedule, the cook's knee surgery date, and which table had been reserved for the mayor's wife. He had that Miller charm. Everyone in Fairview knew it. The Miller family owned Miller Hardware and Feed on Ashton Street. It had been there since 1978, founded by Ryan's father, Frank Miller, back when people still bought nails by weight and farmers paid accounts at the end of the month. Frank was quiet, kind, and tired in a way that seemed permanent. Patricia, his wife, ran the front counter like a stage. She knew everyone's business and called it concern. Ryan had one younger sister, Kelsey, who was 24 then. Pretty, dramatic, and permanently almost finished with something. Almost finished with college. Almost finished moving out. Almost finished paying back a loan. Patricia treated Kelsey like a fragile heirloom, and Ryan like a prince who had been temporarily inconvenienced by adulthood. And me? I was the sensible woman who could help. That was how Patricia introduced me to people. "This is Emily," she would say, patting my arm like I was a useful appliance. "She's very good with money." At first, I took it as a compliment. That was the first mistake. Ryan and I married after 2 years. Nothing extravagant, at least not by city standards. A summer wedding at St. Mark's, reception at the Fairview Grange Hall, chicken marsala, green beans, rented linens, 142 guests. My mother paid for my dress. Ryan and I paid the photographer, the DJ, and the deposit on the hall. Patricia insisted on handling the Miller side because, according to her, a groom's family should have pride. I remember her sitting across from me at my kitchen table with a yellow legal pad, tapping her pen against the paper. "Don't worry about it, honey," she said. "Frank and I have this part." I said, "Are you sure? Ryan and I can contribute." She waved me off. Family doesn't invoice family. I remembered that sentence years later when her invoice arrived. Back then, I wanted to belong. I will be honest about that. I wanted Sunday dinners at the Miller's house to feel warm. I wanted Patricia to stop looking at me like I was being evaluated for a loan application. I wanted Ryan to squeeze my hand under the table and make me feel chosen. Sometimes he did. Most times, he let me earn it. The first payment happened 6 months after the wedding. Ryan came home late on a Thursday, dropped his keys in the ceramic bowl by the door, and stood in the kitchen without taking off his jacket. He said, "I messed up." He had fallen behind on his truck payments, 3 months behind, actually. A blue 2018 Ford F-150 he had bought before we got married because Patricia said a Miller man needed a truck, even if that Miller man worked half the week at a store 3 blocks from his house. The lender was threatening repossession. "How much?" I asked. He rubbed both hands over his face. $7,800. I stared at him. "Ryan." I know. I was going to fix it." That became a familiar sentence in our marriage. "I was going to fix it. I meant to tell you. It just got away from me." I paid it because we were newly married, because I believed marriage meant stepping in before the ground collapsed under both of you, and because Ryan looked so ashamed that night, I mistook shame for change. I transferred $7,800 from my emergency fund. I labeled it in my spreadsheet, Ryan Truck Loan Catch-up, $7,800, June 14th. Not because I planned to use it against him, because I tracked everything. That same year, the IRS notice came. Ryan had done a little freelance contracting, which turned out to mean he had helped a cousin with a roofing business, received checks, spent the money, and never paid taxes on it. Amount due with penalties, $11,260. He sat at our dining room table with the notice spread between us like a bad diagnosis. "My mom can't know," he said. Not, "I'm sorry." Not, "I'll handle it." My mom can't know. I should have understood then who he was really married to. I paid that too, though not all at once. I set up a payment plan, made the first $3,000 payment, then covered the monthly withdrawals until it was gone. I labeled every one. IRS payment, Ryan 2019 tax debt. IRS payment, Ryan penalty balance. IRS final payment, confirmation saved. Numbers do not care if you were embarrassed. Numbers remember. By our second year of marriage, Frank's health was declining. Congestive heart failure, kidney issues, hospital stays that seemed to begin on ordinary Tuesdays and end with Patricia calling everyone from the hallway in a trembling voice. I liked Frank. He never asked me for anything directly. That was part of what made it so easy to help him. He was the only Miller who seemed uncomfortable with what the family took for granted. One night, after Frank was discharged from Mercy General, Patricia called me while I was still working. It was 6:42 p.m. I know because I was building a quarterly forecast and had just opened a new tab for pharmacy benefit projections. "Emily," she said, breathless, The hospital wants payment before they'll process the assistance paperwork. That was not exactly how hospital billing worked. I knew that. But Patricia sounded panicked, and in the background I could hear Frank coughing. "How much are they asking?" I said. $14,000. I closed my laptop. "Send me the bill." There was a pause. Then Patricia's voice softened in that way she used when she was getting what she wanted. "You're a blessing to this family." I paid $14,000 toward Frank's medical bills over the next 4 months, then another $6,300 after his cardiologist changed medications and insurance denied part of the cost. Then $2,100 for a hospital bed rental Patricia insisted he needed at home. Each time she cried. Each time Ryan said, "We'll pay you back when things settle." Things never settled. They only shifted shape. The store needed a new roof. Patricia's furnace died in January. Kelsey's final semester balance had to be paid before the college would release her transcript. The family minivan needed transmission work. Frank's prescriptions changed again. Ryan's credit card minimums ballooned. There was always a reason, always an emergency, always a tone in Patricia's voice that made refusing feel like dropping a match on the family Bible. And I kept paying. Not because I was stupid. I need you to hear that. I was not stupid. I was tired, loyal, hopeful, and trained by grief to believe that love meant preventing disaster before anyone had to ask twice. My father was sick. My mother was exhausted. I understood what it meant to watch a family bend under medical bills and pride. So when the Millers bent, I put my shoulder under the weight. For years, I told myself that was marriage. What I didn't admit was that only one of us was carrying it. Ryan and I divorced after 6 years. There was no dramatic affair, no screaming scene in the driveway, no shattered dishes. It ended the way a lot of quiet betrayals end, with me sitting across from him in a counselor's office while he admitted he had opened another credit card in his name, maxed it out, and used half of it helping Patricia keep the store liquid. He looked exhausted. I felt nothing. That scared me more than anger would have. Our divorce was simple because there was not much to fight over. The Maple Ridge house was mine before marriage, and the deeds stayed mine. Ryan kept his truck. I kept my retirement accounts. We split the joint checking balance, which was less than $3,000 by then because emergencies had a way of finding my money before I did. Patricia did not come to the final hearing. But she called me that evening. "You'll regret breaking this family," she said. I was standing on my back porch in socks, watching rain hit the railing. "I didn't break it, Patricia." She laughed once, cold and small. "No, Emily. You just took what you wanted and walked away." I almost answered. Then I looked through the window at my dining table, where 6 years of folders sat stacked in neat rows. Bank statements, receipts, canceled checks, transfer confirmations, insurance explanations, tax payment confirmations, college billing emails, repair invoices, and one old Excel spreadsheet named simply millerfamilysupport.xlsx. I said, "Good night, Patricia." Then I hung up. For almost 2 years after the divorce, I heard very little from the Millers. Ryan moved into an apartment above the old pharmacy. Kelsey got engaged to a youth pastor from Dayton. Patricia kept running Miller Hardware and Feed with a permanent look of injury, as if life had personally failed to consult her. I kept my head down. I worked. I visited my father. I refinanced my house. I planted lavender along the side fence. I thought silence meant peace. Then the certified letter came. It was April 9th, 2024, at 10:17 in the morning. I remember because the mail carrier knocked while I was on a video call reviewing hospital supply variance reports, and my dog, Pepper, lost her mind at the front window. I signed the little green card. The envelope was from Miller Family Holdings, which sounded official if you did not know it was just the name Patricia had once tried to use for the hardware store's Facebook page. I opened it with a butter knife. Inside was the invoice. Amount due, $120,000. Description: reimbursement for wedding costs paid on behalf of Emily Brooks and Ryan Miller. Payment requested within 30 days to avoid further action. There were line items, but no receipts attached. Venue contribution, $35,000. Catering, $42,000. Floral and decor, $18,000. Family hosting expenses, $25,000. I read the floral line 3 times. Our flowers had been carnations and baby's breath from a woman named Linda who worked out of her garage and charged $1,150. Patricia had not just lied. She had itemized the lie. At the bottom, below her blue ink sentence, she had added one more line. "We trusted you as a daughter. Do not make us expose what you owe." That was when I understood. This was not about money. Not really. Patricia knew I would not simply hand over $120,000. She knew I had records. She knew I was careful. But she also knew Fairview. She knew how fast a story could travel if you wrapped it in disappointment and sent it through the right mouths. Poor Ryan, greedy Emily, the ex-wife who took the house, the analyst with money who refused to repay an old family debt. She did not need a courtroom. She wanted a town square. And by sunset, she had one. The first message came from a woman I barely knew from church. "Emily, I hope you and the Millers can resolve things privately. Money should never come between family." Then my neighbor stopped waving. Then, at Fairview Diner, I walked in to pick up a Cobb salad and watched 3 women at booth 4 go quiet at the same time. The next morning, someone posted anonymously in the Fairview Community Forum. Question: if someone's in-laws paid for a huge wedding and then that person divorced their son and kept everything, should they pay the family back? No names. They did not need names. By lunch, there were 87 comments. By dinner, 143. People I had known since high school were debating my character like I had died and left it up for auction. Then Kelsey posted. Not in the forum, on her own page, with a filtered photo of her coffee cup beside an open Bible. Some people take everything and walk away like they don't owe anyone a thing, but God sees unpaid debts. I stared at that post for a long time. Kelsey, whose college balance I had paid. Kelsey, whose graduation dinner I had covered because Patricia said the family was short that month. Kelsey, who had hugged me outside the bursar's office and whispered, "You saved me." Now I was some people. That hurt more than I expected. I sat alone at my kitchen table that night with a certified letter in front of me and Pepper asleep under my chair. Outside, Fairview was settling into evening. Porch lights on, garage doors down, families eating dinner inside houses where my name was probably being spoken with lowered voices. For a moment, the old version of me reached for the familiar solution. Make it quiet. Pay something. Apologize for a thing I did not do. Let Patricia have the story so everyone would stop looking. Then my eyes went to the hall closet. That was where I kept the banker's box, the one with the old tax returns, insurance papers, and divorce documents, the one I had not opened since the final hearing. I got up, I pulled the box down, and there, beneath a folder labeled 2018 Medical, was a worn manila envelope with Frank Miller's handwriting across the front. For Emily. Numbers, I had forgotten about it. Frank had given it to me 6 months before he died. It was after one of his appointments, when Patricia had gone to pull the car around and Ryan was inside paying for parking. Frank and I sat together on a bench outside Mercy General. He was thinner then, gray around the mouth, his oxygen tube looped over his ears. He had reached into his coat pocket and handed me the envelope. "You're the only one who keeps track," he said. I smiled because I thought he was joking. "I keep track for work. It's a habit." Frank looked at me then, really looked, and his face carried a sadness I did not understand at the time. "Habits save people," he said, "or at least they save the truth." I tried to give the envelope back, but he closed my fingers around it with surprising strength. "Don't delete the numbers, Emily." That was all. I put the envelope away when we got home because Frank was sick and I thought maybe the medicine had made him sentimental. Now, 2 years after my divorce, sitting at my kitchen table with Patricia's $120,000 invoice beside my hand, I opened it. Inside was a folded sheet of notebook paper. Only one sentence. "Never delete the numbers. One day they'll speak louder than people." I read it once, then again. Then I opened my laptop. The room was dark except for the blue glow of the screen. My fingers hovered over the trackpad, and for the first time in weeks, my hands stopped shaking. I found the old file in a folder called Marriage Records. MillerFamilySupport.xlsx. Last modified, January 18th, 2022. I clicked it open. And there they were. Rows and rows of everything Patricia hoped I had forgotten. Dates, amounts, descriptions, transfer confirmations, check numbers, notes. Ryan's truck, $7,800. Ryan's IRS debt, $11,260. Frank's hospital bills, $14,000. Frank's medication gap, $6,300. Hospital bed rental, $2,100. Patricia's furnace, $4,850. Patricia's roof repair, $9,600. Kelsey's tuition balance, $18,750. Kelsey's graduation expenses, $2,400. Store payroll loan, $15,000. Store supplier arrears, $21,000. Store property tax payment, $13,390. And there was more. Small amounts I had forgotten. $320 for utilities, $875 for tires, $1,100 for insurance, $640 for emergency plumbing, $2,065 for a legal filing Patricia claimed was just temporary. The total cell at the bottom had not been updated in years. I clicked it, dragged the formula down, pressed enter. The number appeared instantly. $126,450. I sat back. The Millers had billed me $120,000 for a wedding they could not prove they paid for. And I had already paid them $126,450 to keep their lives from collapsing. The document said otherwise. And this time, I was done letting them speak first. I did not sleep much that night. I sat at my kitchen table until nearly 2 o'clock in the morning, going line by line through the spreadsheet like I was reviewing someone else's life. Every entry had a date. Every date had a memory attached to it. June 14th, 2018. Ryan's truck loan. I remembered standing beside him in the bank parking lot after I wired the money, watching him lean against that blue Ford like he had survived something terrible instead of created it himself. He kissed my forehead and said, "You always save me, Em." At the time, it sounded like love. Now it sounded like a warning. October 3rd, 2019. Patricia's furnace replacement. That was the week Fairview had its first hard frost, and Patricia called at 7:11 in the morning, voice shaking because the house was freezing Frank to death. I left work early, drove to Miller Hardware, and found her at the counter ringing up a customer like nothing was wrong. When I asked for the HVAC invoice, she said, "Oh, honey, just pay them directly. They know us." They knew her all right. They knew to call me when the check bounced. March 22nd, 2020. Kelsey's tuition balance. $18,750. I stared at that number for a long time because that one still hurt. Kelsey had called me crying from the parking lot outside Fairview Community College's satellite office. She said she could not register for her final classes because there was a hold on her account. Patricia had told her I would probably know what to do. I left a budget meeting, drove over, and sat with Kelsey in my car while she cried into a Starbucks napkin. "I swear I'll pay you back," she said. I told her, "Graduate first. We'll talk later." We never talked later. She crossed the stage in May wearing a white dress and Patricia's pearls, and Patricia posted a photo online with the caption, "So proud of our girl. Hard work always pays off." Hard work had paid off. Mine. I leaned back from the laptop and rubbed my eyes. The numbers were clean. The memories were not. That was the strange thing about evidence. People think evidence is cold, but mine was full of heartbeats. It had hospital coffee, winter air, Ryan's embarrassed silence, Frank's thin hand over mine, Kelsey's mascara on a napkin, Patricia's trembling gratitude that always disappeared once the emergency passed. By morning, Fairview had decided who I was. I knew because my phone told me before my coffee finished brewing. One notification after another. A message from a woman at St. Mark's, praying for healing and accountability. A missed call from my former neighbor's wife. A text from my cousin Lindsay in Columbus. "Hey, why is someone saying you owe Ryan's family wedding money?" Then came the screenshot. The Fairview Community Forum had a new post from Patricia's friend, Marlene Howard. I don't usually speak on private matters, but it breaks my heart when good families are taken advantage of. Some people accept generosity, take a house, take a man's dignity, and then act like victims when asked to do what's right. No names again, just enough detail to make sure everyone understood. Under it, someone wrote, "Is this about Emily Brooks?" Another person replied, "I heard she cleaned Ryan out in the divorce." Cleaned him out. Ryan left our marriage with his truck, his tools, his retirement account, and half the joint savings. I kept the house I had bought before I met him, and the bills I had paid after I did. But truth moves slower than gossip. Gossip wears better shoes. By noon, I had been turned into a story. At Fairview Diner, I watched people notice me and then pretend not to. The bell above the door gave its little silver jingle when I walked in, and the whole room seemed to lower its voice by 1 inch. I went to the counter because I refused to hide. Donna, the waitress, had known me since I was 12. She used to give me extra whipped cream on hot chocolate when my dad brought me in after basketball games. That day, she slid my takeout bag across the counter without looking me in the eye. "Everything okay, Donna?" I asked. Her mouth tightened. "Just busy, hun." There were 4 people in the diner. I paid, left a tip, and walked back to my car with my Cobb salad cooling in the bag. In the reflection of the diner window, I saw Marlene Howard watching me from booth 3, phone in hand. She wanted me to look guilty. So I looked calm. That was harder than it sounds. When I got home, Kelsey's post was still up. Some people take everything and walk away like they don't owe anyone a thing. But God sees unpaid debts. This time, I did not stare at it with hurt. I took a screenshot. Then I opened a new folder on my desktop. Miller claim. Evidence. I saved Patricia's invoice. I saved the forum posts. I saved Kelsey's caption. I saved every message that suggested I was a thief. Every comment about gold diggers. Every prayer request that somehow sounded like a courtroom sentence. I had spent my adult life building financial models. I knew the difference between a feeling and a record. A feeling passed through you. A record stayed. At 3:30 that afternoon, Ryan called. His name lit up my phone for the first time in 7 months. I let it ring twice before answering. "Emily," he said. Just my name. I could hear wind on his end, maybe outside the store, maybe outside his apartment. He sounded tired, but tired had worked on me before. I was done funding tired. "Ryan." There was a pause. "Look, my mom is upset." I almost smiled. "Clearly. She feels like things weren't fair." "Does she?" "Emily, come on." That old phrase, the one men use when they want you to walk yourself backwards so they do not have to push. I looked at the invoice lying beside my laptop. "Did you know she sent me a bill for $120,000? He exhaled. "I knew she was thinking about it." "That's not what I asked." Silence. "Yes," he said finally. There it was. Not surprise, not outrage. Permission. "You knew it was false," I said. "She says they paid for a lot." "Ryan, your mother listed $18,000 for flowers. We had carnations from Linda Voss's garage." "She's rounding, Emily. Rounding from $1,150 to $18,000? He did not answer. I heard a truck pass in the background. Then he said, quieter, "You don't understand what it's been like for her since the divorce." I looked around my kitchen. My small gray house. My paid bills. My father's medication schedule stuck to the fridge with a magnet. My dog asleep near the door. Since the divorce, Patricia had lost a daughter-in-law she could call during emergencies. I had lost 6 years of savings and a marriage. "I understand exactly what it's been like," I said. "She feels abandoned." "No, Ryan. She feels unpaid." His voice sharpened then. "You always do this. You make everything about numbers." That one almost landed. Almost. Because years ago, I would have heard that as an accusation. Cold Emily, spreadsheet Emily, the woman who remembered amounts when everyone else remembered feelings. But Frank's note was lying open beside me. Never delete the numbers. One day they'll speak louder than people. So I said, "Numbers are what people use when their memories get convenient." Ryan went quiet. Then, softly, he said, "Don't make this ugly." I laughed once. I could not help it. "Ryan, your mother sent me a fake invoice and started a public rumor campaign." "Ugly already arrived. I'm just organizing it." "Emily, no. Listen carefully. Do not call me again unless it is to put in writing that the invoice is withdrawn and the statements being made about me are false." "You'd really do that? You'd embarrass my mother?" There it was, the family rule. Patricia could accuse me in public, but defending myself would be embarrassment. I stood and carried my coffee cup to the sink. "Your mother is embarrassing herself," I said. "I'm just keeping copies." Then I hung up. My hands shook afterward. I wish I could tell you I felt powerful, but I did not. Not yet. I felt sick. I felt exposed. I felt like the whole town had been invited to stare through my windows. But underneath that, something steadier was forming. A line. For years, I had confused kindness with silence. I thought if I did not mention what I had done, it meant I had done it for the right reasons. I thought keeping score made generosity smaller. Now I understood the difference. Keeping score to control someone is cruelty. Keeping records to protect yourself is survival. That evening, I pulled every box from the hall closet. I spread folders across the dining room table in neat stacks. Bank statements, check copies, hospital billing receipts, college payment confirmations, IRS notices, store supplier invoices, HVAC records, screenshots, Patricia's letter, Frank's note. By 11:46 p.m., the table looked like a paper storm. At the center of it sat the spreadsheet. $126,450. Not a guess, not a memory, a total. The next morning, I called an independent accountant in Dayton named Samuel Price. He was 62, semi-retired, and had once helped my company untangle a vendor fraud issue so carefully that even the lawyers were impressed. His assistant asked what the matter involved. I looked at the certified invoice on my desk. "Family debt," I said. Then I corrected myself. "No, family fiction." 2 days later, I walked into Samuel Price's office carrying a black binder, Frank's note, and the first calm breath I had taken all week. Patricia thought she had started a rumor. She had actually started an audit. Samuel Price's office was on the second floor of a brick building in Dayton, above a dental practice and a divorce mediator. That felt appropriate. The waiting room smelled like old paper, coffee, and lemon furniture polish. No glass walls, no dramatic city view. Just 2 chairs, a dying fern, and a framed certificate from the Ohio Society of CPAs hanging slightly crooked beside the door. His assistant, Marcy, took the black binder from my hands like it weighed more than paper. "Mr. Price is ready for you," she said. Samuel stood when I walked in. He was tall, thin, with white hair combed straight back and reading glasses hanging from a cord around his neck. He did not offer fake warmth. I liked that immediately. "Ms. Brooks," he said, "you mentioned family fiction." I sat across from his desk and placed Patricia's invoice between us. "This is what they sent me." He read it without changing expression. Not the amount, not the fake logo. Not even Patricia's handwritten sentence at the bottom. Family pays its debts. Only when he reached the floral charge did one eyebrow move. $18,000 for flowers in Fairview? Our flowers were $1,150. That was all he said. Then I opened the binder. I had organized everything into tabs because panic was useless, but structure still worked. Tab 1, Patricia's invoice and certified mail receipt. Tab 2, wedding records, including the venue contract, photographer receipt, DJ receipt, and the florist's handwritten invoice from Linda Voss. Tab 3, payments made to or for Ryan. Tab 4, payments made to or for Patricia. Tab 5, Frank's medical bills. Tab 6, Kelsey's college balance. Tab 7, Miller Hardware and Feed Store expenses. Tab 8, screenshots of public statements and rumors. Tab 9, Frank's note. Samuel did not interrupt me while I explained. He took notes on a yellow legal pad with a black fountain pen. Every so often, he slid one document closer, read the date, compared it to my spreadsheet, and made a small check mark. When I reached the store expenses, his pen stopped. You paid supplier arrears for the hardware store? Yes. How much? $21,000. And property taxes? $13,390. He looked over his glasses. Why? That question should have been simple. It wasn't. I looked down at my hands. Because Frank was sick. Because Patricia said the store was all he had left. Because Ryan said if the store closed, his father would give up. Because I thought saving it meant saving them. Samuel waited. That was the difference between a professional and a gossip. A gossip fills silence with judgment. A professional lets the truth finish arriving. Finally, he said, "Do you have proof those payments came from your personal funds?" Yes. Bank statements? Yes. Canceled checks? For most of them. Emails, texts, anything showing repayment was expected? Some, not for all. I wasn't trying to build a case back then. No, he said, looking at the binder. You were trying to build a family. The words hit harder than I expected. I had spent days telling myself not to be emotional, but hearing a stranger name it that plainly made my throat tighten. I looked away toward the window. Outside, cars moved along the street like nothing had happened, like the world did not know I was sitting in an accountant's office, having 6 years of my marriage converted into exhibits. Samuel gave me a moment. Then he said, Ms. Brooks, I am not an attorney. I can't tell you what they can or can't try legally. But financially, this invoice is unsupported, and your records appear substantial. Substantial enough? For what purpose? I thought about Fairview Diner, Donna not looking at me, Marlene Howard watching through the window, Kelsey's Bible verse, Ryan's voice telling me not to embarrass his mother. To tell the truth, I said. Samuel nodded once. Then yes, but we will do it carefully. For the next 4 hours we worked. He asked for original bank statements instead of screenshots. I logged into old accounts and downloaded PDFs. He asked for check images. I found them in the archive. He asked for proof the Miller Hardware tax payment had gone to the county treasurer, not some unrelated account. I pulled the confirmation email from 2021. He caught 2 duplicate entries in my spreadsheet, both small, totaling $640. Remove them, he said. I did. He found one payment I had forgotten to include, $2,275 to Fairview Auto Service for Ryan's brake repair and inspection after he ignored the warning light for 3 months. Included? I stared at the receipt. I remembered that day. Ryan had called me from the side of Route 12, furious at the truck, the mechanic, the weather, everyone except himself. No, I said. Samuel looked up. Why not? Because I don't need every dollar. I need the clean ones. For the first time, he smiled. Good answer. At 5:18 p.m., Samuel printed a preliminary summary. Verified personal expenditures by Emily Brooks for the direct benefit of Ryan Miller, Patricia Miller, Frank Miller, Kelsey Miller, and Miller Hardware and Feed between June 2018 and January 2022. $126,450. He placed the paper in front of me. The number looked different on his letterhead, less like a private wound, more like a fact. I'll prepare a formal review letter, he said. Not an audit. That has a specific meaning. but a professional accounting review based on the documents provided. When? Tomorrow afternoon. I nodded. Then he tapped Patricia's invoice with one finger. If they ask again, don't argue about feelings. Ask for documentation, receipts, contracts, proof of payment. A claim without support is noise. Noise. That was exactly what Patricia had created. A town full of noise. On the drive back to Fairview, I passed Miller Hardware and Feed. The front window had been decorated for the store's 46th anniversary. Blue and white balloons tied to the porch posts. A banner stretched over the awning, celebrating 46 years of family, faith, and Fairview. I slowed at the red light and looked through the glass. Patricia stood behind the counter, laughing with Marlene Howard. Ryan was near the register, stacking bags of birdseed. Kelsey was taping a flyer to the door. For 1 second, I saw the family I had tried to belong to. Then Kelsey stepped back, and I read the flyer. Miller Hardware Anniversary Celebration, Saturday at 6 p.m. Friends, family, and neighbors welcome. At the bottom, in smaller print, a special message from Patricia Miller at 7 p.m. My stomach went cold. I knew before the invitation came. The email arrived the next morning at 8:03. From Patricia, subject line, Family Matters. Emily, given recent misunderstandings, I think it would be best for everyone if you came to the store anniversary celebration this Saturday. People are talking, and I would like to give you the opportunity to address your obligation in front of the people who have supported this family for years. We are not cruel people. We simply believe debts should be acknowledged. Patricia. Under her name, she had typed, Family pays its debts. I read it twice, then I laughed. Not because it was funny, because Patricia had just done exactly what Samuel told me not to do. She had put the trap in writing. I forwarded the email to Samuel, then I printed it and placed it behind tab 8. At 2:14 that afternoon, Samuel's formal letter arrived in my inbox. I opened it with my heart beating in my ears. It was 2 pages, plain language, clean formatting, no drama. He confirmed that he had reviewed bank statements, canceled checks, vendor receipts, tax records, tuition payment confirmations, and other supporting documents. He listed the categories. He listed the total. Based on the records reviewed, Emily Brooks personally paid $126,450 for expenses benefiting the Miller family and Miller Hardware and Feed during the relevant period. There it was. Not revenge, not emotion. A sentence with a total. I printed 5 copies, then 10. Then I drove to Staples and bought a new white binder, 75 sheet protectors, and a pack of clear tab dividers. At home, I built the version Patricia would not be able to talk over. Section 1. Her $120,000 invoice. Section 2. Samuel Price's letter. Section 3. Summary spreadsheet. Section 4. Proof by category. Ryan's truck loan. Ryan's tax debt. Frank's medical treatment. Patricia's home repairs. Kelsey's college balance. Miller Hardware rescue payments. Every section had copies, not originals. Every copy had the relevant amount highlighted in yellow. Every page had a footer with the spreadsheet line number. I did not prepare a speech. I prepared an answer. On Friday evening, Ryan came to my house. I saw him through the front window before he knocked. He stood on my porch in a gray hoodie, hands in his pockets, looking younger than 37 and older than I remembered. Pepper barked once, then stood beside me like she was also finished being polite. I opened the door but did not invite him in. He glanced past me into the house.
Can we talk? We are talking. His jaw tightened. My mom's upset that you haven't responded.
I'm sure she is. She wants Saturday to be peaceful. No, Ryan, she wants Saturday to be public. He looked down at the porch. For a moment, the old sadness moved across his face. Not guilt exactly, more like discomfort at being near the damage without wanting to touch it. Emily, he said quietly, just don't come. That surprised me. Why? Because she's angry. She invited me. She thinks if enough people are there, you'll agree to a payment plan to make it stop. There it was, the plan spoken out loud. My grip tightened on the doorframe. And you let her think that? He closed his eyes. You know how she is. I did. That was no longer an excuse. I looked at the man I had married, the man whose debts I had paid, the man who had watched his mother turn me into a thief because it was easier than telling her no. Ryan, I said, did your family pay $120,000 for our wedding? He opened his mouth, closed it. No. The porch went silent. I waited. He swallowed. No, Emily. They didn't. Hearing it should have felt good. It didn't. It felt like finding a receipt for a fire after the house was already ash. Will you say that Saturday? His eyes snapped up. I can't. Then don't ask me to protect you from what I can prove. He flinched. I almost softened. Then I remembered Kelsey's post, Patricia's invoice, Donna's eyes sliding away from mine. The town square Patricia had built out of my humiliation. Ryan whispered, she'll never forgive you. I said, she was never going to. And for the first time, that truth did not break me. I closed the door gently. No slam, no shouting, just wood meeting frame. On Saturday at 5:42 p.m., I dressed in black slacks, a cream blouse, and the navy blazer I wore for board presentations. I put Frank's note in the inside pocket. Then I picked up the white binder. Patricia had invited me to a celebration, so I brought the numbers. Miller Hardware and Feed was glowing when I arrived. Someone had strung white lights around the porch posts, and the old front windows were painted with blue letters that said, 46 years of Miller family service. There were balloons tied to the railing, folding tables under a rented tent, and a sheet cake on the counter with Frank's face printed in frosting. That almost made me stop. Frank looked younger in the picture, fuller in the cheeks. One hand resting on the store counter, the other holding a tape measure like it was part of him. Under his photo, someone had written, honoring the legacy of Frank Miller. I touched the inside pocket of my blazer. His note was there. Never delete the numbers. One day they'll speak louder than people. I stepped out of my car with the white binder tucked under my arm. The parking lot was full. Church people, store customers, Ryan's cousins, Patricia's friends, a few men from the Rotary Club. Even Donna from the diner stood near the punch bowl, pretending not to see me until she saw me. Then she saw the binder. The room changed before I even reached the door. That is something people never tell you about small towns. Gossip makes people bold when you are not present, but your actual face still makes them nervous. Marlene Howard was the first to move. She leaned toward Patricia and whispered something. Patricia turned. For 1 second, her smile disappeared. Then she put it back on. Emily, she called, loud enough for everyone to hear. You came. I was invited. I said it pleasantly. That bothered her more than anger would have. Ryan stood near the register in a blue button-down, sleeves rolled to his elbows. He looked at the binder, then at me, then down at the floor. Kelsey was beside the cake in a pale pink dress, her engagement ring flashing as she held her phone. She did not smile. Patricia crossed the store slowly, performing warmth for the crowd. She hugged me, not because she wanted to, because witnesses were watching. Her perfume was the same as always, sharp and floral, like lilies left too long in a warm room. "I hope tonight can be healing," she whispered near my ear. I whispered back, "Then tell the truth." Her body stiffened. When she pulled away, she was smiling harder. "Punch is over there," she said. "I'm fine." I chose a spot near the back wall, beside a display of garden tools and bags of grass seed. From there, I could see the whole store. The place had not changed much. Same wooden floors, same bell over the door, same old register Frank refused to replace because he said it had more sense than most people. I remembered standing there late one December night, writing a check for $15,000 so payroll would clear before Christmas. Patricia had cried then. Real tears, I thought. Maybe they were real. Maybe gratitude can be real and still temporary. At 6:58, Marlene tapped a spoon against a glass. The chatter faded. Patricia walked to the front counter where someone had set up a microphone. Behind her, Frank's frosting face smiled from the cake. "Friends," she began, pressing one hand to her chest. "Family, neighbors, thank you for being here tonight as we celebrate 46 years of Miller Hardware and Feed." People clapped. I did too. Slowly. Patricia spoke about Frank, about faith, about hard winters and loyal customers. She spoke beautifully. I will give her that. Patricia could make a grocery list sound like scripture when she needed a room on her side. Then her voice lowered. "And because this store has always stood for family values, I believe there are moments when a family must address painful truths." Ryan looked up. Kelsey stopped recording and started again. There it was, the trap opening. Patricia looked directly at me. "Emily, would you come up here, please?" The room went still. Someone near the back whispered, "Oh my." I did not move right away. I let the silence stretch just long enough for everyone to feel it. Then I walked forward with the binder in my left hand. Patricia's eyes flicked down. "What's that?" "Paper." A few people shifted. She gave a tight laugh. "Well, I had hoped we could speak from the heart. I brought both." Her smile thinned. I stood beside her at the counter, close enough to see a pulse jumping in her neck. She turned back to the room. "As many of you know, my son Ryan and Emily were married here in Fairview. Frank and I opened our hearts and our home to her. We treated her like a daughter." That word landed badly. Daughter. A daughter does not receive a certified invoice. Patricia continued, voice trembling now in a way I recognized as theater. "When that marriage ended, we stayed quiet. We bore the hurt privately. But there remains an unpaid obligation from the wedding, a significant one. And we have simply asked Emily to do the honorable thing and repay what was given." Marlene nodded like a judge. Donna stared at her shoes. Kelsey lifted her chin. Patricia turned to me. "Emily, in front of the people who love this family, will you acknowledge the $120,000 debt?" The store went so quiet I could hear the refrigerator hum behind the soda case. This was the moment she had planned.
She thought I would panic. She thought I would cry. She thought public shame would do what her letter had not.
They thought I was bluffing. I placed the white binder on the counter. The sound was small. The effect was not. "No," I said. Patricia blinked. "I'm sorry?" "No. I will not acknowledge a debt that does not exist." A murmur moved through the room. Patricia's face hardened. "Emily, this is exactly the kind of attitude that has made this so painful." I opened the binder to the first tab and turned it toward the crowd. "This is the invoice Patricia mailed me by certified letter on April 9th. It claims I owe the Miller family $120,000 for wedding expenses." Patricia reached for the page. I put my hand on it. "Copies only," I said. "The original is safe." Her fingers stopped. The room noticed. I turned to the next section. "This is our actual wedding venue contract. The Grange Hall deposit was paid by Ryan and me. Total hall cost, $4,800. I flipped a page. Catering, $7,920, paid from our joint checking account. Another page. Flowers, $1,150, paid to Linda Voss, not $18,000. Linda, who was standing near the door with her husband, whispered, "That's right." Patricia's head snapped toward her. I kept going. Photographer, $2,600, paid by me. DJ, $950, paid by Ryan. Cake, $600, paid by my mother. Kelsey said, "This is tacky." I looked at her. No. Tacky was posting Bible verses about debts you knew nothing about. Her cheeks flushed. Patricia leaned toward the microphone. "This is not about attacking people, Emily. You invited me here to demand money in public. I invited you to be accountable. Then let's be accountable." I turned to Samuel Price's letter. "This is a professional accounting review by Samuel Price, CPA, from Dayton. He reviewed bank statements, canceled checks, vendor receipts, tax records, tuition confirmations, and county payment records." My voice stayed even. I had practiced that part in the mirror once. Not the words, the breathing. According to his review, during my marriage to Ryan Miller, I personally paid $126,450 for expenses benefiting Ryan, Patricia, Frank, Kelsey, and Miller Hardware and Feed. Someone gasped. The number moved through the room like a dropped glass. Patricia laughed. One short, dry sound. "That is absurd." I lifted the highlighted spreadsheet. "The document says otherwise." Ryan closed his eyes. I turned to the first page of the summary. June 14th, 2018. Ryan's truck loan catch-up, $7,800. Ryan's cousin Brad looked at him. Ryan did not move. October through December 2019. Ryan's IRS tax debt and penalties, $11,260. Patricia said, "That was marital." It was Ryan's tax debt from before the marriage. Ryan whispered, "Mom." But I continued. Frank's hospital bills, prescriptions, and home medical equipment, $22,400. At Frank's name, the store changed again. The gossip softened into discomfort. I touched the page lightly. I paid those because I loved Frank. That was the only sentence that almost broke my voice. Then I turned the page. Patricia's furnace replacement, $4,850. Patricia's roof repair, $9,600. Marlene's mouth opened. "Wait," someone said near the seed display. "She paid for the roof?" I did not look up. Kelsey's tuition balance, $18,750. Graduation expenses, $2,400. Kelsey lowered her phone. Her face had gone pale. "Kelsey," Patricia snapped, "don't react." Too late. Everyone had seen it. I flipped to the final section. Miller Hardware Payroll Support, $15,000. Supplier arrears, $21,000. County property taxes, $13,390. I looked around the store, at the counters, the shelves, the anniversary banner, Frank's printed face on the cake. Total support for the family and the store? $126,450. No one spoke. Not Patricia, not Kelsey, not Ryan. The room had gone silent. So I gave them the sentence Patricia had worked so hard to avoid. "I did not take from this family," I said. "I kept it afloat." For 3 seconds, nobody moved. Not even Patricia. The woman who had built the whole night around my humiliation stood beside the microphone with her mouth slightly open, staring at the binder like it had climbed onto the counter by itself. Then Marlene Howard whispered, "Patricia?" That one word broke the spell. Patricia blinked fast and reached for the microphone. "Emily has always been dramatic with numbers," she said, her voice too high. "A spreadsheet can say anything if you make it say what you want." I nodded once. "You're right." That confused her. I turned another tab. "That's why I brought the checks." The room shifted closer without meaning to. People leaned in. Someone near the paint aisle muttered, "Good Lord." I lifted the first copy. "This is the canceled check for Patricia's furnace, paid to Hanley Heating. Memo line, Miller Residence Emergency Replacement." Another page. "This is the county receipt for the store's property taxes, paid from my checking account." Another. "This is the tuition confirmation from Fairview Community College for Kelsey Miller." Kelsey's eyes filled. I did not soften my voice, but I did not sharpen it either. "You told me you couldn't graduate without it." She looked down at the floor. Patricia snapped, "Kelsey, don't you dare!" And that was when Ryan finally moved. He stepped away from the registers slowly, like every foot of floor cost him something. "Mom," he said. Patricia turned on him with relief, as if he had come to rescue her. "Ryan, tell her. Tell everyone this is being twisted." Ryan looked at me. I could see the boyish charm that had once made me believe a weak man was a wounded one. I could see shame on him now, real shame. Maybe the first clean thing he had brought me in years. He swallowed. "The wedding didn't cost $120,000. Patricia's face changed, not sadness, betrayal. "Ryan." He kept going, quieter but clear enough for the microphone to catch. "Mom and Dad didn't pay that. Emily and I paid most of it. Her mom paid for the cake and her dress. The flowers were Linda's. The Grange Hall was under $5,000. Linda Voss, still standing by the door, said, "That's true. I have my receipt book if anyone needs it." A nervous laugh moved through the room and died fast. Ryan rubbed the back of his neck. "And Emily did pay my truck, and my taxes, and Dad's hospital bills." Patricia whispered, "Stop." But the truth had already been filed. Ryan looked at Kelsey. "She paid your tuition, too." Kelsey covered her mouth. That was the moment I saw it land on her. Not the money, the memory, the parking lot, the Starbucks napkin, her own voice promising she would pay me back someday. Marlene took one small step away from Patricia. It was almost nothing. It was also everything. Patricia saw it. Her eyes darted around the store, measuring the damage. The church women, the customers, the neighbors who had repeated her story. Donna from the diner, standing frozen with both hands around a paper cup. Then Patricia did what people like Patricia do when proof blocks the front door. She tried the side entrance.
"You never told me you were keeping a file on us," she said, turning to the room with tears already forming. "Imagine helping family while secretly recording every kindness. What kind of person does that?" My hand went into my blazer pocket. I took out Frank's folded note. The paper was soft at the creases. Frank told me to. The room went completely still again. Patricia's tears stopped halfway. I unfolded the note and placed it beside the spreadsheet. 6 months before he died, Frank gave me this. He wrote, "Never delete the numbers. One day they'll speak louder than people." Nobody spoke. For the first time that night, Patricia looked afraid. Not because of me, because Frank's name still meant something in that store. Ryan stepped closer and read the note. His face crumpled in a way I had not expected. "Dad wrote that?" "Yes." He closed his eyes. "I'm sorry, Emily." It was not enough, but it was something. Kelsey came around the cake table with her phone clutched in both hands. "I deleted the post," she said, crying now. "I'm sorry. I didn't know all of it." "You knew some of it." She flinched. "I let that sit between us because it was true." Then I looked at Patricia. "I am not asking this family to repay me tonight. I am not here to embarrass Frank's memory, and I am not here to argue with people who already decided who I was before asking for proof." My voice stayed calm. That was what made it cut. "I want the invoice withdrawn in writing. I want the public statements corrected, and I want you to stop using the word debt when what you mean is control." Patricia gripped the counter. "You think you've won?" "No," I said. "I think I'm finished." The party never recovered. People did not rush out dramatically. Real life is smaller than that. They drifted. First, the customers with excuses about getting home, then the church women, then Ryan's cousins. The punch bowl stayed half full. The cake with Frank's face sat untouched beneath fluorescent lights. Donna found me near the door. Her eyes were wet. "Emily," she said, "I should have asked." I was tired suddenly, so tired I could feel it in my teeth. "Yes," I said, "you should have." She nodded like she deserved that. The next morning, the Fairview Community Forum had a new post. This time, it had names. Patricia Miller wrote that there had been confusion regarding private family financial matters and that the invoice sent to Emily Brooks was withdrawn. Ryan commented underneath, "Emily did not owe us wedding money. She helped our family for years. I should have said that sooner." By noon, Kelsey posted too. No Bible verse, just 5 sentences admitting she had repeated something she had not verified and apologizing for hurting me. Marlene deleted her post. People started messaging me with careful little apologies. "I didn't know. I'm so sorry. That must have been hard." I read most of them. I answered very few. Because an apology after proof is not the same as trust before it. 2 days later, I received a certified letter from Patricia. No cream paper, no fake invoice. One typed paragraph. The Miller family withdraws any and all claims against Emily Brooks regarding alleged wedding reimbursement. No debt is owed.
She did not sign it with love. She signed it with her full legal name. That was better. A week later, I took the white binder back to my office and placed it on the highest shelf in the closet. Not hidden, not displayed, just stored. Frank's note went into a small frame on my desk, behind my monitor where only I could see it. Never delete the numbers. One day they'll speak louder than people. I still live in my gray house on Maple Ridge Road. Pepper still barks at the mail carrier. Fairview still talks because towns like mine always do. But now when I walk into the diner, Donna looks me in the eye. When I pass Miller Hardware, I do not slow down. Ryan called once more. I did not answer. Kelsey sent a longer apology 3 months later. I wished her well. I did not reopen the door. As for Patricia, I have not heard from her since. That chapter closed exactly the way it should have. Not with revenge, not with shouting, but with one woman standing in a room full of rumors and letting the receipts breathe. Generosity does not make you disposable. Family does not mean someone gets to turn your kindness into an invoice. And sometimes, the truth does not need to scream. Sometimes, it just needs a spreadsheet. If this story made you think of someone who kept taking until you finally kept records, tell me in the comments what you would have done. And if you want more stories about quiet people finding their voice, subscribe to Raw Drama Stories. The strangest thing after a public truth comes out is how quiet people become. For weeks, everyone in Fairview had an opinion about me. Women whispered over diner coffee. Men repeated things they heard from a reliable source. People who had never once asked me how the divorce felt suddenly knew exactly what kind of wife I had been. Then the binder opened, and somehow, all those confident voices disappeared. That Monday, I went back to work like usual. I had a 9 o'clock budget review, a 10:30 call with a hospital supply vendor, and a dental cleaning at 3 o'clock I almost canceled because my whole body still felt like it had been standing under fluorescent lights at Miller Hardware. But ordinary routines can save you. I made coffee, I fed Pepper, I put on earrings. I opened my laptop and reviewed line items because numbers had never betrayed me. People had. Numbers just sat there until someone was ready to read them correctly. At 11:12, an email arrived from Ryan. No subject, just one paragraph. I'm sorry I let her do that. I knew it wasn't true. I was embarrassed about how much you paid, and I let Mom turn that embarrassment into your fault. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just wanted to put in writing that you did not owe us anything. I read it once, then I saved it to the folder. That was all. There are apologies you accept with your heart, and there are apologies you accept as documentation. Ryan's was the second kind. On Wednesday, Samuel Price called to ask if I had received the withdrawal letter. Yes, I said. Certified. Good, he replied. Keep the envelope. I smiled for the first time that week. Already scanned. He gave a small laugh. I had a feeling. Before we hung up, he said something I still think about. Ms. Brooks, kind people often believe records make kindness less pure. They don't. Records don't poison generosity. They protect it from dishonest memories. I wrote that sentence on a sticky note and put it inside the binder. The fallout at Miller Hardware was not dramatic at first. No lawsuits, no police cars, no shouting in the street. Just small-town consequences, which are slower and in some ways more brutal. People stopped lingering at Patricia's counter. The church ladies who used to bring her casseroles after every minor inconvenience suddenly became busy. Marlene Howard switched grocery lines when she saw me once, clutching her purse like I was the rumor now.
Kelsey's fiancé postponed their wedding by 3 months.
I heard that from Lindsay, who heard it from someone at St. Mark's. Apparently, his mother had questions about family financial boundaries. Fair enough. Questions are healthy. I wish someone had asked them earlier. As for the store, it stayed open. That mattered to me more than I expected. I did not want Frank's store destroyed. Frank had not sent me an invoice. Frank had not posted online. Frank had sat beside me outside a hospital and tried, in the only way he could, to leave me a warning. A month after the anniversary disaster, I drove past Miller Hardware and saw Ryan repainting the front trim alone. No balloons, no crowd, just him on a ladder with a paintbrush, moving carefully under the old sign. For a second, I almost pulled over. Not to talk, just to tell him Frank would have hated the chipped blue paint. But I kept driving. Some chapters do not need one more sentence. Fairview adjusted too, because towns always adjust when the story changes. Donna at the diner started giving me extra dressing again. The pastor's wife stopped me after service and said, "We should have been slower to judge." I said, "Yes." She waited like there might be more. There wasn't. I have learned that forgiveness is not a performance you owe people because they feel uncomfortable with what they believed about you. Sometimes the most honest thing you can give someone is a clean boundary and no audience. The only apology that surprised me came from Kelsey. It was handwritten, 4 pages, mailed in a lavender envelope. She wrote about the tuition payment, about the day in my car, about how Patricia had told her for years that I liked holding money over people. She admitted she had believed it because believing it made her own guilt easier. The last line said, "You saved me when I was too young and selfish to understand what saving costs." I sat with that letter for a long time. Then I wrote back, not 4 pages, 3 sentences. I appreciate the apology. I hope you build a life where you do not let other people decide who deserves your gratitude. I wish you well. That was mercy. Access would have been something else. I still have the framed note from Frank on my desk. Sometimes during long work days, when a forecast won't balance or someone tries to explain away a missing number with a soft voice and a sad story, I glance at it. Never delete the numbers. One day they'll speak louder than people. He was right. But the numbers did not just speak about what the Millers owed me. They spoke about who I had been. A woman who helped. A woman who tried. A woman who mistook being useful for being loved, then finally learned the difference. I do not regret paying Frank's medical bills. I do not regret helping Kelsey graduate. I do not even regret saving the store. I regret staying silent after people taught themselves that my silence meant permission. That is the lesson I took from all of it. Kindness without boundaries becomes a place other people park their debts. Family without honesty becomes a courtroom where only one person is ever on trial. And truth, when you keep it carefully enough, does not need revenge. It only needs a table, a room full of witnesses, and the courage to open the binder. 6 months after the anniversary night, I found the certified invoice again. Not because I was looking for it. I was cleaning the hall closet on a rainy Sunday, the kind of slow Fairview afternoon where the streets shine black and every car sounds louder passing the house. Pepper was asleep on an old towel by the back door. My father was having a good day, which meant my mother had finally gone home to nap, and for once, nobody needed me between noon and 4. I pulled down the white binder to move it to a storage bin. The invoice slipped out. Cream paper, black type, fake dignity. Amount due, $120,000. And there, at the bottom, Patricia's handwriting. Family pays its debts. I expected to feel anger. Instead, I felt distance. That was how I knew I was free. There are moments in life when something that once had power over you becomes just an object. Paper, ink, a record of someone else's attempt to make you smaller. I held that invoice in my hand and realized it no longer felt like an accusation. It felt like evidence that I had survived a version of myself who used to answer every emergency with her own wallet. The letters had stopped. The rumors had died the way small-town rumors always die, not with an apology parade, but with people quietly pretending they had never believed them that strongly in the first place. At church, Marlene Howard started sitting 2 pews farther back. At the diner, people spoke to me carefully for a while, like I might open the binder between the salt shakers. I never did. That was important. Once the truth was out, I did not carry it around like a weapon. I did not correct every whisper. I did not post the spreadsheet online, though more than one person told me I should. I did not ruin Patricia's store, or Ryan's reputation, or Kelsey's engagement. They had done enough damage to themselves by forcing the truth into public. I simply refused to clean it up for them. Patricia and I crossed paths once that fall. It was outside Fairview Pharmacy. She was walking out with a paper bag tucked against her chest, and I was going in to pick up my father's medication. For a second, we stood under the same green awning while rain came down in thin silver lines. She looked older. Not weak. Patricia Miller would never allow herself to look weak. But smaller, somehow. Like the town had taken back the stage lights and left her standing in ordinary daylight. Her eyes dropped to my purse. Maybe she imagined another binder inside. Maybe she saw Frank's note in every pocket I owned. She said, "Emily." I said, "Patricia." That was all. No apology, no accusation, no performance. She stepped aside so I could pass, and I walked into the pharmacy with my head level and my hands steady. It sounds simple. It was not. Walking past someone who once controlled your stomach with a phone call is its own kind of victory. Ryan sold the blue truck in November. I heard it from Donna, who heard it from the mechanic's wife, who heard it because Fairview has never respected the concept of privacy. He bought a smaller, used Honda and started working full-time at the store again, not as the prince of anything, just as a man sweeping floors and unloading boxes before opening. Part of me was glad. Another part of me understood that being glad did not mean going back. Kelsey's wedding happened the following spring in Dayton, much smaller than planned. She sent me an invitation in a pale gray envelope. "No pressure," she wrote on a sticky note. "Just wanted you to know you were welcome." I did not go, but I mailed a card. Inside I wrote, "Build a marriage where the truth is spoken early, not dragged out later." I meant it. I did not send money. That may sound cold to some people. It sounded healthy to me. As for Miller Hardware, it survived. The anniversary banner came down, the blue paint was fixed, and Frank's picture stayed behind the counter in a simple wooden frame. Sometimes when I drove past, I saw customers going in and out like always. Bags of mulch in spring, salt in winter, feed sacks loaded into pickup beds. I was glad the store stayed open. That was Frank's legacy, not Patricia's invoice. But I no longer confused saving a thing with belonging to it. For a long time, I thought love meant being useful enough that people would finally choose me. I thought if I paid the bill, solved the problem, took the late-night call, and never mentioned the cost, eventually someone would say, "Emily, you matter even when we don't need anything." Nobody in the Miller family ever said that. So I had to say it to myself. That was the harder work. Harder than facing Patricia in front of the town. Harder than reading the numbers aloud. Harder than hearing Ryan admit what he should have said before the first rumor left his mother's mouth. Because once everyone else goes quiet, you still have to live with a woman who let herself be used for so long. You have to forgive her too. Not because she was foolish, but because she was trying to be loved with the tools she had. I forgive that woman now. I keep her records. I honor her effort. But I do not let her make my decisions anymore. The white binder is in a storage box now, labeled in black marker, Miller Matter. Closed. Closed. Not forgiven in the way people demand when they want access again. Not forgotten in the way people prefer when the truth makes them uncomfortable. Closed. There is a difference. Frank's note is still on my desk. Some mornings, sunlight catches the frame while I'm reviewing quarterly numbers, and I remember his tired voice outside Mercy General. Habits save people, or at least they save the truth. He was right. The truth did not shout that night at the store. It did not beg to be believed. It sat in a binder, highlighted in yellow, and waited for the room to catch up. That is what I want you to remember. If you are the reliable one, the quiet one, the one everyone calls when something breaks, please hear me. Your kindness is not a contract for your silence. Your generosity is not permission for people to rewrite your life. And family, real family, does not send you an invoice for the privilege of being used. Sometimes boundaries look cruel to people who benefited from you not having any. Let them think that. Let them talk. Let them be uncomfortable when the version of you they counted on stops showing up with a checkbook and an apology. You do not have to destroy people to be free of them. Sometimes all you have to do is keep the receipts, tell the truth once, and walk away before they ask for one more thing. The Millers wanted me to pay a debt I did not owe. Instead, I collected the only payment that mattered: my name, my peace, my life back. If this story reminded you of someone who turned your kindness into an obligation, tell me in the comments what you would have done in my place. And if you believe quiet people deserve justice too, subscribe to Raw Drama Stories for more stories like this.